My name's Maija Lindaas, and I play the folk harp, among some other things. And the name of that tune I just played is called Carolans Welcome, which I thought was pretty fitting, since I'd like to welcome you to my tiny miniature virtual talk about a fellow, an Irish fellow named Turlough O Carolan, who was born in, 1670 to 1738. So a while ago. And he was a fascinating fellow, and there's quite a lot about him, and I'm going to probably summarize just a bit. So Turlough O Carolan was around in the late 17th century, and he would travel around from house to house for usually rich people, and he would basically in exchange for room and board, he would write them songs. And so he wrote a ton of songs. We know of over 200 songs that he wrote in his time. He probably wrote lots more. And he wrote these songs in honor of his host, and he would call them planksties. We're not sure if he made up that word or if he just popularized it. And planksty means in honor of. So I'm going to play you a planksty that he wrote for a fellow named George Brabazon. I think it's a great little piece. And it's actually in a different key than what I just played, so I'm changing these black things here. I'm taking these levers and I'm sharping them, so I can actually play in a different key. So my Fs. I'm turning to F sharps, which is pretty nice. So here's Planksty George Brabazon. So that's an example of one of the songs that he would write for someone that he would stay with. So Carolan didn't just write planksties, he also wrote lots of songs and other tunes, and I'd like to play the first tune he ever wrote, supposedly, according to legend. And it's a very popular tune in Ireland and in here, and it's called Shebeg Shemore, which directly translates into Big Fairy and Little Fairy, but it means Big Fairy Hill and Little Fairy Hill. And fairies in Irish folklore are not necessarily tiny people with wings, although they can be. They really refers to any kind of spiritual, magical being. The she. This is the collective term for magical fairy creatures. And so this Big Fairy Hill, Little Fairy Hill are actually references to the ancient warriors that are buried there. And legend has it that every once in a while they will kind of awaken and recreate their battles. This is Shebeg Shemore. sometimes it's nice to keep some mistakes in so that you know that I'm just performing for you. So yeah, that was She Beg, She More. Something that a lot of people don't know about O Carolan is that he didn't write down any of the music in his lifetime. He actually just passed on the melodies orally to different people. And when people actually wrote down the tunes a few decades later, they actually never included a left hand. They didn't include any chords or anything. It's just the melody. And so something that I really like doing when I play the harp in general, and something that I feel like is fairly true to, well, as true as I can be to O Carolan, is I actually don't write out any of the left hands that I play. I look at the melody and I just make up something. And I think that's a fairly common thing to do in folk harp. And the cool thing is, like, there is no correct melody, left hand to these. There's a correct melody because that's what's written down, but basically anything goes, which is kind of cool. Later on, I think this next piece I will play. It's called Lord Galway's Lamentation, and it's a lament, so it's very sad. So a lot of people will write out or assume that it's in D minor. Let's say it's let's play it in G major. See how it sounds. I actually haven't tried this before, so we'll see how it goes. So it goes like this. Oh, here's the melody. So that's the whole melody that's written down. Let's see if I can make major chords to it. Oh yeah, I changed the key. Different kind of sound. And then I'll play a totally different left hand, same right hand, and see how that sounds, how a lot of people play it. And as it is a lament, I think the last one probably works a little bit better. Let's see what's next. So one last thing that I'd like to bring up about O Carolan that I find inspiring, among many other things, he's a pretty cool guy, is that he was blinded by smallpox when he was 18. So before then, he had never really touched the harp. So he started picking up the harp as an 18-year-old, which was really late by their standards. And sometimes people even think that's late by our standards nowadays, modern times. So most of the time, if you started an instrument after you were 10 back then, people thought there was not really hope for you for becoming a professional performer. But there weren't very many options for him since he was blinded, and there's not that many other jobs you could do in the late 17th century. As a blind person. So he picked up the harp, and in 3 years, at the age of 21, he was gifted a horse and a guide, and he was out, playing for people, composing plangsties, which I find inspiring. So I'd like to play a few more things that he wrote for people. This one's called Mrs. Richard Trent. Nowadays, people also call it Fanny Power. And it goes like this. Twister. And then another one that he wrote, a sadder one, is the clergys lamentation, another lamentation that he wrote. He actually became so famous in his lifetime that people would delay weddings and delay funerals for him to come play for them, which I think is that's pretty cool. 'Cause sometimes it would be for longer than an hour for sure. So this is the clergys lamentation. So here's a piece of music written by O Carolan's contemporary named Henry Purcell, someone that was around the same time as him, writing music in England. This is an Englishman that wrote this. And I'd like to just include this just to compare and contrast the types of music that were surrounding O Carolan. Turlough O Carolan's musical influences were mostly Baroque music, which had the reputation at the time of being very sensitive, passionate music, and Irish folk music. So this is something that was happening on the other side of the sea, and it's called Juice of Barley. Things haven't changed much. People back then, the popular music was also about alcohol, so... A little ditty. And then to compare that, I'd like to play a song that has a little bit of a story behind it. So O Carolan was very fond of ale, and it goes that he drank so much that he was actually making himself ill, and so his doctor said, naturally, you should stop drinking, it's making you ill. And Carolan got so upset by this that he got even more and more sick looking and sick feeling. And so he went to a different doctor, a guy named John Stafford, and said, how do I feel better? And that doctor looked at him and said, well, it seems like you're really sad, so you should drink more. And so Carolan got so happy that he wrote this song called Carolans Receipt, which is an old word for prescription, since the doctor's prescription for his ailments was beer. So this is Carolans Receipt, and also called sometimes Dr. John Stafford, named after the guy who gave him the receipt. So, oof, that was a rough start. Here, let's go start again. So yeah, I think that ale did the trick, because that seems like a pretty happy song. So to fully change course here, the last song I'd like to play for everyone is my favorite song that O Carolan ever wrote. The melody really gets stuck in my head, and it's also the last song that O Carolan ever ever wrote, the last song he ever played. So the story behind this is that he knew he was dying, was feeling ill, and he went downstairs and he wrote this amazing, beautiful piece of music, and then went upstairs and died. And so, yeah, I'd like to leave you with this. It's called Carolans Farewell to Music, and I wish I could play. Traditionally, people only play through it once, very slowly. I wish I could play it multiple times because the melody just sits with me. But I will try to play as slow as I can this beautiful piece of music. So yeah, that's my favorite piece he ever wrote. And thanks for listening to me talk about this amazing harpist for a while. I really enjoyed putting this together. Thanks.